Mr. President.
Senator from Illinois.
Mr. President, I don't believe you can serve in the United States Senate without being at least an amateur student of history. You're overwhelmed in this chamber, which is where the Senate has met since 1859, to reflect on all of the things that have occurred in the past, and you remember your own experience there as well. I certainly do. This is my 29th year of service in the Senate, and I think back this evening of some of the things which I've witnessed and still stick with me. I can still see that door open and Ted Kennedy walk through it, summoned from his deathbed in Massachusetts to cast a deciding vote on the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. He wouldn't miss it, even if it meant he was going to die in the process. I think of that door over there when President Trump in his first term tried to basically eliminate the Affordable Care Act, and it was saved at the last minute at 2 o'clock in the morning when John McCain came through those doors, stood in the well right by that table to the Republican side, and cast his vote no. He couldn't raise his arm. It had been damaged so badly when he served as a prisoner of war during Vietnam, but you knew how decisive his gesture was. And he saved health care for millions of Americans. There were other moments as well that I can reflect on. But the point I'd like to get to is this. There was a speech a few minutes ago on the floor of the United States Senate which every senator should have heard, particularly every Republican senator. A senator from North Carolina gave a speech, Senator Tillis, and explained why he decided to vote against this Republican budget plan, this reconciliation bill. He explained it in a thoughtful and comprehensive and convincing way. That before he made his decision, he turned to Republicans in the state and Democrats and a neutral third party to analyze the bill. And he concluded, Mr. President, after that study, that careful study, that this measure, this changes in Medicaid and Medicare and other health programs would be a disaster for the state of North Carolina. He'd made it clear before tonight that he was going to vote against this bill. And he made it clear this morning that he's preparing to retire from the Senate. I felt his statement was compelling, and I'm sorry that there weren't other members on the Republican side, at least one, beyond the presiding officer present, to hear it. It's seldom that you hear a speech on the floor of the Senate that you know is so personal and so heartfelt and so meaningful as the statement made by Senator Tillis earlier. He made a decision which will be widely reported, I'm sure, and showed a level of political courage which you seldom see in this chamber. He basically said, in a positive way, that the president was wrong in believing that this wouldn't hurt ordinary people. This Republican measure, which is before us tonight, tomorrow, is going to hurt a lot of people. We estimate that 16 million American families will lose their health insurance as a result of this measure that's on the floor today. I've said it before, but I want to repeat it. If you have ever been the father of a new baby with a serious medical problem and you have no health insurance, you'll never forget that moment as long as you live. I know, I've been there. I went to the charity ward of Children's Hospital here as a student at Georgetown Law School with my wife and baby, and we waited in line to see which doctor would walk through the door and see my baby and save her life. You feel that you've let everybody down in the world at that point, that you don't have health insurance when you need it so badly. It means so much to you. This bill is designed to take health insurance away from 11 million families in America. 11 million families in America in a period of time will not have the peace of mind that they have access to the best care because they will have lost their health insurance. What is it about Donald Trump taking away coverage of health care? Why has this become the trademark of the Donald Trump Republican Party? He did it in his first term, or tried to, and John McCain stopped him. And now he's trying to do it again. The question is whether Senator Tillis and his Republican colleagues can muster enough courage to step up and find 4 Republican senators who will say, no. No, I'm not going there. I don't want it on my conscience or my record that I took health insurance away from so many American people. Now, you may argue, Durbin, you're a Democrat, and I am. And your arguments have to be tempered because you're so partisan, so political. Surely it isn't as bad as you just said it was. Well, let me read something to you. It's from a group called the American Cancer Society. I'm sure you've heard of them. This is their Cancer Action Network, and it's a letter to the Senate from Lisa Lacasse, president of the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network. And here's what she says about the measure that's pending before us now that we're being asked to vote on. From the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network, quote, history will be made with this vote. Congress has one last chance to stop this unprecedented attack on access to health care for millions of Americans, including cancer patients and survivors. Congress can say no to terminating health coverage for nearly 11 million people who will have no other affordable option available to them if this bill passes. Currently, 1 in 10 people with a history of cancer have Medicaid coverage, including 1 in 3 kids who are newly diagnosed with cancer. We know having quality health coverage is one of the most significant factors in whether someone survives a cancer diagnosis. Voting for this bill means voting to rip the chance of survival away from real people. She goes on to say, simply put, this bill will mean more Americans are living sicker and dying sooner. And then she said, lives are on the line. So if you're skeptical about anything that I say because of my partisan background, I understand it. But for goodness sakes, from the American Cancer Society, to have such a definitive statement made that this measure that we're being asked to vote on is going to harm innocent people, men, women, and children. That's a fact. And Mr. President, I might add another short message that we received from the Children's Hospital Association. The Children's Hospital Association. Matthew Cook is their president and CEO. And here's what he says about this bill that is pending. The new version of the budget reconciliation bill is a crisis for children's health care, hospitals, and providers nationwide. And we ask Congress to oppose it as an act of support for American children. This bill goes much too far. The bill amounts to fewer doctors and nurses to see your child, longer wait times, and sicker children. We know that the impacts of poor pediatric health care reverberate for a lifetime. From the Children's Hospital Association. Neither of these organizations are partisan organizations, and they have confirmed what Senator Tillis said earlier on behalf of the state of North Carolina and what those of us on this side of the aisle are saying all along. Why would we risk the lives and well-being of so many children, so many American families? What is it about the $1 trillion which we will take out of the healthcare system in America that is so pressing, so demanding that we're willing to make these big risks? I'll tell you what it is. It is the extension of tax breaks. Tax breaks for the wealthiest people. Oh, Durbin, you Democrats always talk about billionaires and millionaires. That can't be true. Senator Angus King is here. He told me that he did an analysis of the actual tax breaks. And if I remember correctly, if you do a cutoff of income of $400,000 a year and said anyone over that figure is not going to receive any tax break, you would reduce the cost of this tax program by 60% or more. 60% or more. So when we talk about tax breaks for the wealthiest people in America, that's exactly what this is about. I want to give tax breaks, if I can, to working families who struggle from paycheck to paycheck. But for goodness sakes, a $346,000 tax cut for Elon Musk, the richest man on earth? What are we thinking? And I just want to make a quick reference to 2 states that have an experience coming with this bill, which will be dramatic. One is Kansas. In Kansas, 360,000 individuals rely on Medicaid coverage. 56% of them are children. But with this bill, 89,000 people in Kansas are going to lose their health insurance. In Kansas, Medicaid covers 1/3 of births, 58% of nursing home residents. What happens when Medicaid does not pay for enough money into the nursing home to keep your mother under good care, or your father, or someone in your family? What do you do next? Well, you exhaust the savings that are available to your family. And if that isn't enough, what's next? I don't know, but when I grew up as a kid, there was a spare bedroom in my grandparents' home for brothers and sisters who had no place else to go. I suppose that's going to happen to some families. Already 28 rural hospitals in Kansas are at immediate risk of closure. To think that this measure would have no impact on those families and those communities is just plain wrong. In adjoining state of Missouri, which I grew up across the river in the Mississippi River, grew up in Illinois, I grew up across the river from St. Louis, Missouri, 1.2 million individuals rely on Medicaid coverage. 50% are children. With this bill, 250,000 people in Missouri are projected to lose their health insurance. Medicaid covers 40% of births in Missouri, 65% of nursing homes. Already 10 rural hospitals in Missouri are at immediate risk of closure. Mr. President, you know as well as I do what happens in small town America, rural America, when they close the hospital. It is devastating, not just because you don't have access to quality health care, because you just lost a major economic engine for that community. Try to attract a new business to that town after the hospital closes, and watch what you run into. It is that devastating. And that is the reality of this approach. And why are we doing it? What is the national emergency that calls on us to make this change? Tax breaks for the wealthiest people in America. That is what's motivating the Republicans now. I want to close and just say thank you to Senator Tillis. He's shown extraordinary courage. The question is whether others will join him, whether 4 Republican senators will step up and say enough. I've heard enough, I've seen enough, I believe this is wrong. There are ways we can help people who need a tax break rather than the wealthiest people that won't damage so many families, 11 million, 16 million, whatever the number turns out to be, who lose health insurance. I hope that we come to our senses and do it soon. I hope that what Senator Tillis said on the floor will inspire members of his own caucus to listen carefully, to know that he speaks the truth, and he has taken great political risk to say it. I yield the floor.